Hi, and welcome back to Strikes Our Fancy. I am your main DM for tonight, Caleb. And who do I got with me?
I'm going to go second this week. Ha! Second, Rob. It's NPC Craig.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh. And we've got a role player, Rob, here. But we also have a special guest with us today.
Asimar Ashley?
Yeah.
I like how I made my name sound like a question mark.
Yeah, maybe.
Who am I?
Maybe. I don't know. A woman of mystery.
Right?
Woman of mystery.
Ashley, you've been listening to us for a little bit, and you've expressed some very kind thoughts, and so we thought we'd have you on for a very special episode to talk about DMing specifically, which I'm super excited because I want to pick your brain about some of the situations you found yourself in.
Can do. I'm excited for this, actually. Very excited.
Yeah. I don't. Do we just want to dive right in?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited for this episode because my favorite part of role playing is seeing how other game masters run their games and learning from that. And I mean, I'm the perennial DM.
Yep.
So whenever I get to play, it's all about what are they doing? How can I make my games better?
Mm-hmm.
So can we at least give a little bit of a primer here about, we're all DMs. We've all DM'd at some point, I think. I think I've done a game and a half. I'm not very well seasoned. I'm very bland. But what about you guys?
I have run, I think about a game and a half as well. I was doing a campaign with our core group that kind of fell apart, as some campaigns do. But I learned a lot, I think, just by picking Rob, your brain a lot during that session, or during that campaign. I'd kind of run stuff by you. But that definitely opened my eyes a lot to how much planning actually goes into a freaking campaign.
Yeah, it's a lot. Again, I am always the DM. So, it happened that I just really wanted to play Dungeons and Dragons. So I bought all the books, read them all front to back, and then invited everybody over that I knew. And about a third of the people I invited showed up. So,
and I guess just for timeline and context sake, Caleb, I think we both DM'd after being DM'd by Rob.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I took a lot of things from Rob.
Yeah, you kind of inspired us, right?
Yeah.
ooh, that's good to know.
And what about our special guest, Ashley?
Oh, man. So I actually have two different versions of DMing.
Oh.
So one of them is I have done for my friends and coworkers. And there was just so many, my rookie mistake was there was just so many of us that it became really hard to do. So it was only a couple, and I've done a couple of one-shots type of idea. However, I'm also a mental health counselor, and I actually run a D&D role-playing group that's group therapy that helps people process different things in that way. So I've done it in a therapy setting as well.
That's so awesome.
Can we talk about that? Because that is, explain that to me. I want to hear about that.
Okay, so the whole concept is people come in and they are themselves, except they're enacting their ideal self. So if you want to be more social, you're going to be playing a more social character. It still has your background. You don't have to do like a backstory drop or anything along those lines, but you have to act as if, right?
Oh.
So as if I was more social, what would I do in this situation?
Okay.
And what's really nice is you can make the most beautiful speech. It can be very profound, but if you don't roll high enough, you may not pass. Just like real life, you can say all the right things, but if the person isn't willing to listen, it may not go well. So then it's like, well, then what do you do next? So it's kind of a campaign based upon that.
That's awesome.
So just to clarify, like if I were coming to this group session, I would sit down with my character sheet, Craig, with my stats of what I want to be. And what is there an overarching narrative, or is it really just these one little scenarios to kind of deal with specific situations?
So what we do is you have a character sheet and it's already pre-rolled because we don't get to choose all the things that we're good at and not good at. So there's that. So it's pre-rolled and you get to pick your character's name, and that's a way to make it not as personalized. So if you run into a situation, it's like, remember, that's your character that ran into it, not you.
Okay.
Okay.
And so it's a way to make it not as, like I said, as personal. So then you can roll, you can do whatever. And I actually do have like a story arc that we go through. I do say, remember, this is therapy first. So I can change it at any point in time. I can kind of do whatever I want that has to do with therapy.
Bitch, my game doesn't have to make sense.
Right? That's exactly kind of what I tell people. I'm like, I get to do whatever I want. But the best thing I ever found was kind of like a happy fun time ball where I can, like, it's like a maze. That it's like, well, if you walk through different doorways, different situations can happen. So that's my fun way of being able to create any narrative I want, is like essentially you go through one puzzle or one interaction and then you're into a next one and you need to figure out how to get out of there.
Is this something you created, or is it something you read about and like, oh, I want to implement this?
So yes to both.
Yeah.
I was at a big conference at South Dakota. It was called SDCA, and someone there was doing it with middle schoolers. And if I remember correctly, they kind of drew situations out of a hat and role played them and did that kind of situation. And I was like, that's really cool. How can I apply that to college students? So I was like, well, I don't think pulling situations out of a hat is going to be as helpful. I think having a game, because what introduced me to D&D first was I was a player, and I was having a really hard day one day, and I sat down at the table and I was like, I want to be in a world that has no real world consequences. Like, I can do what I want and it's going to be fine. And that was actually very like therapeutic in that moment. And I was like, well, why can't I bring that into what I do? All I need to do is create a story and have people willing to do it. So that's kind of what I did.
So obviously these are patients.
Correct.
And are there like specific story arcs specific to them relating to things going on in their lives, or is it specifically meant to be based away from their real life?
I already have a story arc kind of made out that's pretty generic that I can add things if I want to, or I can take away without meaning to. Some of it has been very personalized, which was never the intent, which is kind of fun to see people go through.
Is that good or bad?
Most of the time good, because what I have is also, it's a red card, green card. So green means everything's fine, but if it gets too stressful, they can switch it to red and I'll skip that scene.
So you have a bunch of buffers in place just in
Yes.
case. Oh, I love
Yes.
that. That's amazing.
So, and I think as a DM, just in general, with having people in a group, you have no idea what the group is going through. So having some kind of thing of like, this is too much for me today as a signal instead of stopping a whole game, it can just be like flipping a card over and it's like the DM knows, oh, we can switch that. We can skip this scene. We can make it less. It's just a good way of communication. So it's fun for everyone at the table.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting thing. We have, well, I don't know for you guys in particular, but I've never played with anyone that wasn't a friend first.
Right.
So yeah, the red card, X card, whatever you want to call it, was never a thing we really needed to worry about, because I kind of knew what limits I'm not allowed to go over with these guys.
Well, I think it's interesting you say that, because I mean, I played Adventure League with you for a little bit, and I mean, I imagine those guys were strangers to start when you started Adventure League, but I feel like that's almost like the polar opposite. Adventure League is completely washed down, like there's no personalization.
So I wasn't the DM for that.
Oh, that's also a fair point.
So,
yeah.
And I think that has become a part of Adventure League. When we were playing, the whole idea of red card was really new. I hadn't heard of it at that point. But I think it's actually part of Adventure League.
Oh, that's awesome. This is a little darker. I don't know, but like, has there ever been a situation that comes up where like your client is okay with it? Their card is still green, but like, you know that they're maybe processing some trauma. Has it gotten that far, or is it shallower than that?
Yes and no. I wouldn't say like any deep-seated, dark, horrible trauma per se.
Yeah.
So the big things, I do air quotes as if people can see me. Anyway, the big things that we kind of go over are social situations, because who doesn't just in general want to be more social? So we kind of developed a game that they have to talk to people in order to trigger a clue to a puzzle. And it's really fun, even paying attention to keywords or key phrases, the way things are described. So what this puzzle is essentially people drop in a tavern and there's no door. Everyone in the tavern can see the door, but the players. They'll see dwarves playing darts. They'll see a group of people having dinner. They'll see a barkeep. They'll see a farmer, just general people. The one in particular, as I'm giving all these descriptions, I'll say, and then there's a man kind of picked a darker corner. He's reading by candlelight because he wanted to get away from the noise a little bit. But you can see he's eating food and just kind of reading a book. As I keep describing all this, well, as people talk to the patrons, they eventually will get riddles. Then they have to solve the riddles to get to the next point.
Okay.
Essentially, it's darkness, wind, candle, light. And the whole point is you have to put it together to blow out the candle. And that's how the door gets opened.
Okay.
Oh, that's awesome.
And almost...
You have to go bug the guy who's just sitting in the corner minding his own business.
Pretty much, right? That's exactly the thing that, he's trying to avoid. And it's really funny because most of the people, as I describe it, forget that there's a candle there.
Oh.
They'll always be like, yeah, there's a guy with a book. And I'm like,
Yeah.
there is a guy with a book. You are correct. And so it's fun seeing people problem solve that. So they have to go ahead and make people talk to them for a period of time. They have to figure out how to walk up to a group of strangers. Then they have to figure out how to work together to figure out how to put these words into a meaning and then do it.
Cool.
So it's a whole host of different social interactions that they have to practice.
So, okay, have you learned of any of like the real world implications from what they've learned from this in regards to like their social activity? Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's been positive. People have pretended that they are characters. Like, we got one feedback that's like, I just pretend people are a group of dwarves and now I can talk to them. And it's like things like that.
Yeah, I talk down.
Yeah. I just, hi, everyone. Or, I mean, whatever the situation may be. Again, it's different depending on, sometimes I make different people up in there. So, but they just they've learned that it's like, okay, I can go talk to people, or I can listen to other people's opinions. There's just a whole host of different examples that people have given. So
Super
it's been
cool.
fun.
Yeah.
To broaden a little bit, I want to fixate on, you mentioned that your players they kind of forget about the candle. I'm curious, round the table, how do you guys, when you're GMing a game, balance between trying to be like, hey, this thing over here that's kind of important, you should pay attention to it, versus giving them enough general context, but also not creating something so interesting accidentally that that's what they focus on? I still don't know how to balance this problem. I'm looking at you, Ashley.
Oh man, I'm trying to think. I guess, oh man. I just kind of let people like stew for a minute, and most of the time they try a couple things, and if it's really clear that they're having a problem, I might be like, roll an insight or investigation check, roll an insight check, like to kind of guide a little bit more. Like I have a door named Dorian, for example, that I've used like in both campaigns, and he is just a dopey door. And he's talks to people and he's very clueless, and above it says beholder. So most of the people freak out because they know what a beholder is, and they're like, oh no, like clearly bad things are about to happen, and they're like, how do you open, what do you do, like, and there's no knobs, there's no nothing, and Dorian has no idea how to open himself.
Is there an actual way to open Dorian?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You have to get Dorian to say beholder. That's
Ah.
it. There's no beholder behind it. You just have to get him to say the magic word.
Gotcha.
And it's fun watching like my coworkers when they did this. It was so much fun watching them problem solve and figure out different things and try to interact with him. And the different things that they came up with caused more laughter and bonding and fun. That it's like sometimes it's nice to let people
Absolutely.
figure it out almost.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
that moment of everybody interacting with each other, and not even really with the scene, but
Yeah.
okay, what do you remember? What did you see? What
Right.
what can you do in this instance is some of the best role playing you can get.
I think it's funny seeing people. What about you?
Like in regards to like pointing people in the right direction, I am very much like a video game. I will very much point out there is a brightly lit portion of the wall here that you can easily break through if you need to.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
This wall is colored different for some reason.
Looks a little off.
Just pointing that out.
Just let me know.
Do with that what you will.
That's not how it. I mean, my first group was similar. I had like 8 people. Too big, way too big, especially for a new person. So like with everybody being new, never having played, I did feel a need to coddle them a little bit more and be like, yeah, this is a little weird over here. You should go check that out. Not so egregious, but I'm not sure because I haven't DM'd too much. But with well-seasoned players, they're just like, what's over here? What's over here? I'm going to investigate this. It was very much easier when the new people were just like, I don't know what I want to do, which is a little irritating. I mean, it is what it is, and you have to get through it.
Right.
Everybody starts somewhere. Caleb.
Exactly.
Jeez.
Exactly.
Don't be so judgmental. No, I totally get it. I don't think there's anything more infuriating, and it's never their fault. But when someone sits down at the table and is like, "Well, I don't know what I can do," it's like, "This is D&D. Do whatever you want. Like that tree over there, go climb it. Like that bar over there, go have a drink. Like anything."
Well, one of the things you would constantly tell us whenever we would ask you that question, it was like, this is DM, you can do whatever the hell you want. I've taken that whenever they would ask me stuff, like, you can do whatever the hell you want. This is D&D.
Yeah.
And that didn't help them.
No,
They're still clueless.
doesn't answer their question.
Yeah.
Specifically, Ashley, so you talked a lot about your kind of your clienting DMing. You are doing something I would never ever do. DMing your coworkers. Like that sounds awful.
Yeah. No, they're good. Yeah. No. They're actually a lot of fun. I think the hard part is one, getting schedules lined up. The other part is there's just so many of us. Like I think at one point with all like interns and coworkers and sometimes significant others, I think at one point it was like 14 people that were showing up, and I was just like, I can't.
Yeah.
Like this is too much.
When there's that many people, do you really give many players agency, or you're like, nope, this is the story and this is what we're doing?
I tried to go ahead and give them agency, which was part of the problem. It just like chaos erupted. And some people felt like they could play more than others. And so it just, it became a lot. So actually we shrunk it down, which is much more helpful because just there was a lot. So that was my bad.
Yeah,
my bad.
That's something that Craig's mentioned to me is that well, and I feel this too, but you've talked about it a lot more, struggling with letting other people play as well. Because you're very into, okay, I know I can do this, this, and this.
Yep.
And you always want to try all the things, but you always want to give someone else the option to try things first.
I don't want to jump on the idea that somebody hasn't even realized they could have yet. And also, I'm very much like, I have a plan. Anytime this is me as a player, I'll be like, I have a plan, but if anyone else has a plan, we should do that first, because my plan is probably not the greatest idea. So I always want to give other people the option.
I really like story. Like I'm a story fiend. Like every character that I try to come up with has like its own backstory. And like even like as a DM, like I said, every non-playable character that I'm like, what do they eat for breakfast? What is their story? What are they doing? Like I'm a little bit weird. I get that. So
do you have a name for all of them? Because that's where I struggle. Anytime someone asks for a name, I'm like, let me check my sheets.
I struggle with names all the time. Especially names. Like I can come up with story characters and back ideas much quicker than I can come up with names.
Right.
And most of the time, like let's see, I did a one shot fairly recently where I did like a NPC and then we were talking and then it came up with on the fly. And all of a sudden I was like, their name is, and I looked at the player across from me and I picked the player's name. And I was like, I can't think of any other name.
Did they catch on?
They looked at me, they're like, really? And I was like, it's fine. Don't worry about it. That could be a name.
DM's best friend here, website fantasynamegenerator.com.
I recently have heard of that and I'm like, where have you been?
Every conceivable fantasy species, every real world society, everything you could think of. You click it and you get a list of like 10 names and just pick whatever one you like.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
When we were playing during the pandemic, I would have that up as I was DMing.
Yes.
I'm like, this person's name is click, click, click. This. Hey, look at that.
Yep.
And that is the inevitable question from your players. What's their name?
What's your name? Fuck. That doesn't matter.
My favorite moment as a player was a DM. Like we found a black dragon and there's a whole bunch of kobolds with the dragon. And the character I was playing just was absurdly friendly to everything. So as they captured us and were taking us, I was like, what's your name? What's your name? And finally he's like, I'm not naming all of them. They're all named Larry. It's fine. And I'm like, fair enough.
That is in keeping with kobold society.
Right? And, like,
The tribe of Larry.
Right? It's like, I'm not naming all of them.
Mhm.
With 14 players, did the thought ever cross your mind, like, figure out who wants to do more role play, figure out who wants to just do combat, and just split them up?
That's what ended up happening is some people moved, some people decided they were too busy. And actually, honestly, it's been really crazy. So we haven't met in a while, but, yeah, that's kind of ultimately what ended up happening because it just became way too much to manage.
Right.
And it's hard when you have people that like to role play versus people that are just like, nope, I want to fight. Let's do the next thing to go ahead and find that very good balance in such a big crowd. So
Did you ever run combat with 14 people?
I did.
Oof. Oh my god.
That was like a 2-hour horrible
Yeah.
time of my life. So I was like, wait, who are you? I missed you. I'm sorry.
Well, and with newer players too, so like
Yeah.
you're gonna have so many questions about like, how do I do this? Can I do this?
Most of
Sounds-
them were newer players.
That sounds exhausting.
Yeah. Again, so many things I learned from that. They were all great and I appreciate them because they were my guinea pigs for the group.
Sure,
and I was
yeah.
like, can I do this? Is this something that seems feasible? And they're all like, sure, let's try it. I'm like, cool. And then they liked it and wanted to continue. And I was like,
Uh-oh.
yay. Good. I'm glad you liked it.
Very smart though to try running it before bringing the real campaign you wanted to do.
Yeah. Yum.
What was that I read? Because I was running, again, not as big as 14, because that's huge.
Right.
But when I was running 8, I was like, and rolling for initiative each time is ridiculous with more than like 5
Mhm.
people. And I had read somewhere like, have all your characters roll initiative at the beginning of the session, and that is just the way it is going to be for the
You're
next.
stuck.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which takes away some of the like variety that could happen,
Mhm.
but also it's just freaking easier
Right,
to,
yeah.
to just do that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because rolling for initiative takes about 5 minutes.
Mhm.
It really does, yeah.
I also think coming up with a story that's engaging to all players is
Yeah.
a challenge. That's like, how are you going to manage
Mhm.
someone that really likes and like horror more and like give me that like intense like on edge feeling versus someone who's like, that's not my cup of tea.
Mhm.
And it's like that gathering of what's happening on both
Mhm.
sides. Yeah.
I think that really becomes pre-game before you start playing. You have that idea. Okay, I want to do kind of a horror themed game right now. Where we're gonna storm Castle Ravenloft,
Mm-hmm.
and then everybody knows. And if I'm not really interested in that, I'll stick this one out.
Mm-hmm.
How did you set the tone for 14 coworkers? Because there's also like
Right.
stuff you probably just don't want to touch in a professional setting.
Yeah. So when it was actually more of work related, it was very much like essentially a fetch quest.
Mhm.
So that was kind of the setup. They had to fetch a gem from a treasure hoard essentially. So it was very simple and very like kind of cookie cutter.
Mhm.
And then as people were like, no, let's meet outside of work and do this, I was like, okay, how do I create this world that I didn't intend to continue in? And it was really developed to be a one shot almost. Like, I mean, it did leave on a cliffhanger in case, but it wasn't a very good cliffhanger type of idea. So it has been this balance of how do we, right now it's like the king got murdered and they need to figure out who did it kind of idea.
Yeah.
So it's I think I want to just scrap it all and do something different.
That's what I was thinking is like, how do you tell your players, hey, you might be really invested in this world and your characters, but I'm not. Like, and I got to make this shit.
Right?
When in doubt, a lich did it.
Right? That's,
Yeah.
I think I'm going to let them, if we continue, they can keep their character if they want, or they can re-roll. But the thing that I've realized that has been helpful for me when I develop worlds is knowing things that I'm passionate about and bringing that into it. Like, I really like history, and that is such a great, I don't even know, groundwork.
Reference.
Yeah, because people are interesting and they do some crazy things, and the stories they come up with are nuts. Like, look at any of like the mythologies
Mhm.
and the things that like gods and goddesses did. It's like there's a playground in and of itself to work for. Or rewriting fairy tales. Like, how would it go in like modern times? Like, that type of idea seems kind of fun to me because it gives people the idea of assuming that they know and this comfort of a world that they're like, oh, I get this.
Right.
But then changing it completely on them. It's kind of fun in that way.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Do you ever have your players help you create the world?
Yes. I love backstories that help me create worlds. And if they
That
don't
is
give
the
me
best.
enough, I come back and be like, well, what does this mean?
Yeah.
Tell me more about this.
Mhm.
Because that's fun to build.
So the I'm just curious because I love hearing stories of the other worlds people have created. What was that particular plot point you're talking about? That kind of in that you were just like you're reading the character sheet, the history of what they've created, and you're like, I need to implement this. What was?
There's one character, if she continues to play the character, that has the ability to kind of see into the future or read cards really well. And I actually thought she would be a fun plot point for like a fairy tale type thing. Like, she was the one that set like Cinderella up to go to the ball or something like that, or like set, I'm not sure which fairy tale character, but kind of is the witch without meaning to be the witch kind of idea.
Huh.
I thought that would be kind of fun to create like a world around that character. Or there's another one that's like grew up in an orphanage, and it's like, well, that'd be interesting to kind of do like an Oliver Twist kind of scenario, or maybe almost like an Anastasia type of idea. Like, actually, what you didn't know is you're actually royal, and what are you going to do now? Type of idea. I really like.
Screw all the other
that.
orphans. I'm going to go live in a palace.
Right? Like, sorry, sex to suck. So I like those types of things and making people think about it from a different perspective, especially if it's really vague. When people give me that, I'm like, that leaves it open for me to go ahead and interpret this what I want, right?
What about you guys? Anything that's been in your players' character descriptions that you're just like, I need to nab this right now because this is interesting?
The Black Antlers, for sure. Caleb came up with this faction. He actually used it in 2 games, and my biggest regret is that in both of them, we never explored it.
Yeah, they were always just kind of around.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't. They were kind of the boogeyman, but we didn't really know what was going on.
Yeah. I think you should run a campaign where you explain what they were doing.
I actually initially planned to include them in Witchlight.
Oh yeah.
Not anymore, because I don't think they'd fit
Sure. Yeah.
in that playground. But yeah, that was one of my ideas.
I'm trying to remember in Devilish Dealings what if I latched on to somebody's. The players, like, you guys made a plot point on your own, like, as a group. It wasn't any one person, but like, you got really fixated on something, the Iker, and I was like, all right, I can roll with this, and like, I fundamentally changed the story I was going to make. So I'm just like, all right, we'll just explore this. So it wasn't any one particular backstory.
And again,
point.
it was Carrie who got heavily invested in it.
It's great when players get heavily invested in something. It's just like, really, it's not important. Don't do it. Just stop. All right, here we go.
Yep.
Yep.
So you've got your client based campaign, you got your coworker based campaign. Have you done one strictly just for friends yet, or is that something that's kind of down the pipeline?
I've done a one-shot for friends. It was a very small group, and it was kind of more horror based.
How nice was that? The small group.
Oh my gosh, it's so much nicer. It went quick.
Yeah.
But again, people got fixated on one thing, and I kept being like, this was really a throwaway fact. Like, which made me laugh a lot that they're just like, we need to find this. And I was like, really, you don't? But okay. Like, I don't, and it's hard because I don't want to stifle like their creativity and what they want to do, but also there's so many times that like I don't care how high you roll, the answer is it's not here, so stop. Like,
Nope. I'm not going to change this reality because you rolled a 20.
Right,
Like,
right. It's just like, this is just not how that works.
Yeah.
Which is an expectation, I think, from a lot of players. They roll a 20 and they're like, give it to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
I
just,
did
success.
the thing.
yeah.
Mhm. Have any of you guys ran a horror campaign?
I actually have. Yeah. I ran, and I never finished it. And I desperately want to do another one. I ran Curse of Strahd, which is an incredible, and that is actually the first campaign I ever ran. And I want to do it again.
That's awesome.
I was thinking about this earlier when we were talking about tone. The campaign I was running with these guys and a few other people, I went a little too dark, I think. It wasn't fantasy horror. It got a little like too real life horror a little bit. And so I started to try to pull it back in a little bit and be like, no, this is supposed to be an escape, not something that stresses people out.
Not me specifically. I've done the campaign I was doing with 8 people was called Out of the Abyss, which is kind of a survival horror type module. Basically, you're trapped in the Underdark and you got to get out. And there's lots of like giant monsters and demons and the whole thing. But the Underdark isn't a fascinating place if you're new to the game because it just turns into a slog.
Right.
Oh, look, another cave.
Cave after
Yeah.
cave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Oh, more drow? Fun.
That's actually something I've never done is I've never ran a module. All of it's been homebrew.
Oh, yeah.
oh, that's awesome.
Well, you just dove right in. You're
Yeah,
just like,
yeah. So there's a lot that I did wrong the first go around of like
As everybody
playing.
does.
How it works. Yeah.
But it's kind of interesting because I've done, like I said, I've never ran a module. I've only ran like whatever crazy comes in my head. So
So what did you learn from that first campaign? Like learning from that, what did you?
besides there's too many people, one of the things that I learned is people have no problem messing with your world in ways that you did not expect. And when you don't expect what to do, you are literally, there's so much on the fly that I didn't expect that I had to create
Mhm.
and like come up with like that second that I was like, oh, that would have been nice to actually know different places.
That exact problem is why I really like running the modules, because a well-written one will just have a ton of NPCs
Mhm.
and it just gives you a little bit like, what's this person's motivation? Where do they hang out? And what are they trying to accomplish?
Mhm.
But then it's really just that hook. There's nothing written about what they're going to say to players or what your players are supposed to do to them. Just, hey, this person wants this, and if the players approach them, they're going to try to get that.
Mhm.
And just having like that list of characters and potential plot points on hand is insanely helpful.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm going to leap on that segue a little bit because a question I still cannot answer is how much prep work to do before a session. Because I find myself with a foot in each camp where it's like, I want to feel prepared. I want to have content ready, but I also know it's all going to go to shit. And so like, what's the point? Like, why bother? So what is the amount of prep that you guys do for a session on average?
Do you find if you do too much prep that like you kind of force your players to go in that direction anyways? So would that be a bad thing to prep too much, do you think?
Personally, I feel like when I prep too much, I end up getting too invested in ideas that I'm like, but really, no, you should go left. And it's like, that's not fair. So I do have to go ahead and be like, okay, so here's left and here's right. So like, and if I do that, it's better for me to go ahead and prepare kind of just very vague, like touch point outlines. And then kind of like if they go off the rails, then it's like, well, we go off the rails together, I guess.
Yeah.
Couldn't it be like whether they turn left or right, they're still heading in that direction? Like, is it?
I mean, that's a problem. Like if I get really prepared by something, I'm like, it doesn't matter which one you choose. I'm still going to make you do
Yeah.
this.
The illusion of choice.
Right.
Yep.
So, but I like the real world, like left and right do equal different things. So
Yeah.
what does it do? So yeah, that's me. I kind of do points along the way of like, okay, this could be here, this could be here,
Mhm.
and then leave it at that.
Okay.
I find the most prep that I do is in dungeons, where no matter what you do, they're gonna explore all of these options eventually. So there's no, I'm pointing you this way because I expected you to go this way. because even if you go the other way, well, I already prepared that too.
Mm.
Outside of the dungeon zone, that's really just social interactions. So the prep work is, again, names, motivations, and honestly, that prep work, I don't do that before playing the game. That's from the last time we played until this time. I'm just thinking, okay, what are all these characters doing in this world? What do they want? What are they? And then just chase an idea and maybe flesh that out a little bit. But if not, then players don't follow that. Doesn't really matter because I've got a ton of other characters that I was thinking about. And you're not really going to get out of the village in a day. If you go out of the village, then okay, well, I'll just stall because a bunch of wolves are attacking or whatever.
I think I'm in the same mindset, or at least kind of what you mentioned, Caleb, that like all roads kind of lead to Rome. You can choose these paths, and different things might happen along those paths, but we're always getting back to the core plan that I made. Like, this is still all kind of going to the same direction.
I follow that same route, but is that inherently disingenuous as a DM?
Yeah,
Because
I don't
I do agree with your point too, in that which is like you're taking away a little bit of the extra agency that they could have. But also, I got my damn story that I want to tell.
I think that's the hard part. Is like, where does it end up? I think of D&D to a degree like a giant open world game. Like, you can still have your main quest, but along the way you might find these other quests. But eventually, it's going to lead to the main quest. So in my work campaign, there's also children missing, or there was. So, and I've made sure to make points along the way of like, even if you go into this town, you notice that there are missing children posters. So it's kind of that constant reminder of like, you're not getting away from this idea. It's still going to haunt you until you address it. However, if you choose to address it in 10 sessions, I guess that's your choice, type of idea.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't think I've ever come across a situation where there was something where the plot is pointing this direction and the players say, no, I don't want to go that way. We're going to go check this out. Maybe you get, okay, well, we're not ready to go that way yet. We're going to hang out in town. We're going to shop. We're going to chase leads and make sure that is the way to go. But it's, ultimately your players want to complete the quest.
Mm-hmm.
I think if they're listening, spoilers. I don't think they realize that the children are the main plot point at this point. But we may scrap the it, so it doesn't matter anyway. But
what I was laughing a little bit to myself before is if they ever get back to that plot, just whenever they resolve it, the pile of bones of dead children will be bigger depending on how long they took to get there.
Kind of what I thought. I was like, really, at the end of the day, it just really depends. Yeah. But they got distracted by going to the castle, and at the castle the king died. So it's like, I think that's the other part in the worlds that I create. It's like, okay, so even though children missing is happening here, what else is happening in the town? Mm-hmm. So it doesn't change the fact that people might be getting robbed at the same time as children going missing. So it's like, again, that's my problem as a DM. I'm like, what is this world and what all is happening in the world? And then I'm like, oops, let's go back to the main point.
Listening to that as a player, like if I was to choose between a dead king or missing children, I would assume the dead king would be the main plot point in that.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you guys maybe have more sympathy now as players where you like do stop and think like, oh wait, what are we supposed to be doing right now? Like, I'm not going to make a choice right away, but like, what does the DM want us to be doing? Or do you guys does not even cross your mind?
I don't care.
I try not to think of that.
Okay.
Because for me, DMing, the best moments are the ones that I didn't expect.
Okay.
I like to create chaos. No, I mean, a little bit, yeah. I have a lot of empathy for what the prep work that goes into it. So I try to make sure that like I'm being respectful of their time too, of like what they've put in, but also within the context of my character's going to do what my character's going to do. You also have to adapt to me because we build this world together. Mm-hmm. It shouldn't be a one person idea. Otherwise, again, then why are you playing with a group of people? So
how do you guys wrangle players who have that kind of mentality, though? Like, do you guys ever have a player who's like, no, this is about me right now, and I'm going to pull the whole group along with me, even if they don't want to come?
I've never had
You've
that
never had
problem.
that?
No.
No?
I think it's a way that you can curb them by kind of just being like, for me, having like running into that once, it was just kind of, all I said was, remember you're playing with other people. I just
Okay.
kind of did a gentle reminder of like, there's other people as well. You can choose to do that if that's what everyone chooses to do, but this is a group choice,
Mhm.
not a you choice.
Okay.
Or you fight things on your own. I mean, you can split the party,
Yeah.
but
You never split the party.
you never split the party.
So, as you DM multiple campaigns, more than one at least,
Yeah.
what's your favorite moment that's happened?
Oh man.
If again, there's so many. There really is a lot.
There
that
is a
happens.
lot.
Yeah.
There is a lot that happens. I have some. Oh, I have some that I can't share though. That's
Patient client
Right,
confidentiality,
right,
Caleb.
That's a problem. Some of my favorite
No.
moments.
This podcast is worth violating HIPAA
It's fine.
for.
It's fine. It's fine. I think one of my favorite moments, I have two. One of them was a player that pissed off a captain of the guards, like really, really pissed him off, and ended up doing charmed person on it and convinced the queen and with the approval of the captain that this person is now the captain's boss or right-hand man. And I was so agitated at the DM being like, there's no reason right now that he would disagree with you because he finds you as a good acquaintance. So there's no reason why he would say no to you.
Mhm.
So now you've really made this person mad and now you're going to be partners. And I don't know how I feel about this. So that just made me, in the moment, I was like, you suck. Looking back, it was really funny.
Mhm.
Another one was two characters went off to investigate the king after he had passed away, and they asked him questions and whatever, and they came back to the chamber where the queen was, and they were trying to distract the guard, and they forgot the queen was in the room, who was just distraught that they just saw that their husband had passed away and just completely distraught. They decide to make the distraction by, I think the king's awake out in the hallway. And the queen, and I was like, and the queen sits up and goes, he's alive. And everyone's like, oh no. And they're like, just kidding. It's okay. Go back to bed. And
Not really, but didn't that make you feel great for a moment?
about that. And so it was really funny seeing a group of people like have this oh shit moment and then like try to convince the queen everything's fine, no guards, you should go out there, but everything's fine. And it made me laugh a lot. It was just pure chaos. Anyway, that was my moment. What about the rest of you?
I think my favorite moment was playing Tomb of Annihilation, final showdown with the Sararak. Somebody had pushed him down into the lava beneath the fighting area, and he's just draining hit points. And I think whoever it was died in the lava with him, or maybe
Yeah,
somebody teleported.
It was an
him out.
NPC, I think, like tackled him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or like somebody tried to grab him with a whip. I don't
Yeah.
remember exactly how that went down, but Sararak's just draining HP down in the lava, and he tries to teleport out. But Craig's character had been saving his highest level spell slot with counterspell.
Yep. We're going up against a Lynch. I'm just going to sit on this.
Yeah. So yeah, he just melted in the lava.
It was
You-
amazing.
You stay down there.
Yeah.
The entire
amazing.
table erupted
Yeah.
whenever he did
amazing.
that. It was
Very fun.
amazing.
Oh.
I remember that.
Do you guys have a favorite memory as a player?
Casting fly on my dog.
That's awesome.
We were trying to get him from like one thing to the next, and we could all do it except for him. So I just casted fly on him, and Rob was just like, "Oh, he just starts floating away."
Yeah, he's a dog. He didn't know how to
Right?
control it.
That's amazing.
Mine was also in Tomb of Annihilation, where kind of behind the scenes, my character was delving into lichdom a little bit. And Rob, you set up a scenario for me very nicely for me to explore that a little bit. I didn't really get to make anything of it, but it was still very fun. I got to have a little one-on-one moment with, wasn't it a demon or something? That like
I don't remember what he was.
he was portrayed as just kind of a doddering old kind of like fox anthro character just sitting in a chair. But then when I started talking to him, I'm like, oh shit, like this is a powerful entity. And I got to have some fun role play with that. I really, really enjoyed that. How about you, Ashley?
I think one that comes to mind more recently is, so I play a Dhampir right now, and I really like, it's a vampire kind of hybrid almost type of thing, and I really enjoy playing it. And
Sparkles or no sparkles?
No sparkles. Okay. No. Because I also like vampire mythology a lot. Like, I'm a giant nerd about that. Anyway, so I like playing this character, and nobody knew that one of my characters, just abilities that it has, is it can spider climb just whenever I want to. And we're in this epic fight with another character's, like, from its past, like a bad guy type of idea. And we're fighting, and we're clearly, like, they're not doing very well, but neither are we kind of idea. And the DM's like, and they jump up on the wall and like kind of skitter away. And at this point, no one knew that I had this ability. And we had been playing, it was probably the 4th or 5th time. Mm-hmm. And I was like, no, screw that. I'm following him. And everyone's like, you can what? And I was like, yeah, I do that. And then
this doesn't come up.
Right? And I ended up like beating him, which was really fun. But it was like this fun moment that everyone was like, because they were like, oh man, we let him get away. And like you could see the disappointment. I was like, no. No. And then that was a lot of fun to see that reaction. So
my wife got me with one of those. We were playing Star Trek Adventures, and some Romulans were fighting them, and one tried to run away and crawl through a vent. And she's like, nope, I'm going after him. She jumped into the vent and just started shooting him from behind.
Where's he going to go? It's not like he's going to get out of the way.
That's awesome.
So, Ashley, it's really been wonderful having you. You have a lot of interesting ideas and stories that you've told us.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been great.
I would love to play with you someday if I could.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, most definitely.
If you, dear listener, have any stories from behind the screen you want to share with us, you can reach out to us now at strikesarefancy at gmail.com. We have a Twitter, we have a YouTube, and we have our main Our Fancy site. So feel free to share any stories you'd like.
Did you say we have a Twitter?
Yeah.
This was recently discovered.
Thank you for being our second guest. This has been wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
And I just want to say that having the guests on is really fun.
Yeah,
I like
it
this
is,
so far.
Yeah, it's gonna be great to keep doing it.
I'm tired of you guys.
Yeah,
So.
talk to you guys all the time. Well, we'd be happy to have you back again sometime, Ashley.
Absolutely. This was fun.
But as per usual, I've been your DM, Caleb, for tonight.
Oh fuck! You caught me off guard.
Roll for initiative. I'm Rob.
Oh fuck! Here's I've been choice paralysis, Craig.
Oh yeah, Asimar Ashley, and I said that more confidently this time.
Yeah. Got to it.
She knows this time.
Now I know who I am.
Rolled a 20.
Right.